work it out. Brothers gonna work it out. Brothers gonna work it out. Brothers gonna work it out. Y'all hear me now? Now don't get him no peace sound if you don't mean it from your heart. United we can get over.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sunday Spotlight, brought to you by One More, One Less Mentoring Program. I am your host, Charles Pratt, and I am by myself today because Mr. Tony Hinton is away on a little vacation. We hope you are having a fantastic day on this rainy Sunday. Now, before we get started with today's show, I want to quickly give a shout out to everyone who makes the show possible, Mr. Ron Beezer, and everyone at the entire One More, One Less Mentoring Program. And of course, our producer, DJ Big Nick, for holding us down again once every Sunday, like how he always do. Give yourself a little clap there, sunshine. Clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap, clap.
It ain't hooked up yet.
Oh, but anyway. So let's reintroduce our guest for today, our returning guest, Miss Tierra Sydnor-diggs. And I had a brain fart right there. Don't judge me. And Mrs. Lauren Capel of Keys of Hope Consulting, LLC. They are dedicated to educate, develop, and empower and restore. How are you ladies doing today?
Wonderful.
All right. I ain't too much trouble in the rain today, huh?
Nope.
Good. All right. So the Sunday Spotlight addresses the issues that our young people are facing and empowering not only them, but you, the listener, with the knowledge and resources to build solid foundations and a sense of purpose. The Sunday Spotlight not only talks about the social issues facing our youth and communities, we present the organizations, programs, and the people who are making a positive difference and changing the mindset of our youth and our communities. The theme of October has been trauma. We've delved into it. Our last 3-4 shows, we've tried to cover as many avenues as possible, but today we're going to talk about the coping with trauma, as you know, as your business does and is an excellent provider of.
Yes.
So cool. All right. So our question of the day, I want y'all to listen. How have you dealt with your past trauma? That's our question of the day. Hit us up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/OMOL mentoring. Hit it right up in the live. And also, don't forget to call in if you want to join in on the conversation or you have questions. 1-855-493-6499. Again, the number is 1-855-493-6499. All right. So, you know what? I'm not going to take up a lot of y'all time because it's raining out. We all want to get back home, right? I can dig. So, we're just going to talk a little bit about what it is that your company does, just to reintroduce, the people, because, you guys have been here last year today. So thank you for coming back again.
Thank you for having
1 year anniversary. You're no longer guests, you're family now.
Thank you.
You got to get your own drinks from now. So just going to put that out there. So, let's see. We want everybody to really, really join in this conversation. So please don't be afraid to join in. Call in, share the page, share the live. We're here. We want you to be involved. Yeah, I'm gonna get them headphones on. I keep telling. Anyway, so let's see. My first question. What issues can arise if we don't try to deal or heal ourselves from trauma when it comes to our youth?
Well, it manifests in many different ways. We can see it through the way behavior, and we know that behavior is also ultimately a source of language. And so behaviors may range from aggressive behavior to the type of behavior where children may or youth may kind of like isolate themselves, or you may see depression, suicide, it can kind of run the gamut, of what it may see if it kind of festers. And again, sometimes it may also show up as, silly, as being overly silly. A lot of times comedians talk about, they're some of the funniest people in the world, but at the same time, a lot of times they are dealing with their own pain and tribulations, and so it can look different from each individual. There's no cookie cutter way to deal with pain and how it may manifest itself. It's just basically being aware, and just making sure that regardless of whether you really know a person's true story or what's underneath every layer, because we're all similar to onions, we have lots and lots of layers, just to kind of always act in compassion, understanding, because again, you just really never know what they may look like. And like I said, it can look like aggressive behavior all the way down to someone being funny and at the same time hurting, and just not feeling like their best self.
I mean, there are also physical things. So when people complain about headaches and chronic pain, a lot of times when people are carrying a lot of trauma, it does show up in your physical bodies. It could be high blood pressure. It could be, back aches, pain aches,
stomach aches, especially with children.
A
lot of anxiety. And actually, if many of us, whenever you are experiencing positive stress, toxic stress, that gut feeling, everything sits within your stomach. That's where the cortisol is released. So that's where you'll often find, where you'll find children complaining, oh, my stomach ache, or I have a headache. And that could lead to, some type of anxiety or just something deeper than just a general, oh, my stomach is hurting.
So what's your parents like when their child does say like their stomach is hurting, like how should they like approach it? Like, should it be like, oh, you be all right, take some ginger ale, go lay down, or should they be a little bit more in tune of whatever it is that's stressing their child or whatever?
I would say definitely in tune. I mean, it's more than, hey, my stomach is just hurting. It could be stuff like they're having nightmares. They might be overly aware. They might be avoiding places, because children with anxiety or dealing with a lot of PTSD, they have trigger reminders. So it could be them not wanting to go someplace or triggered by a certain smell. So it might not be one particular thing. It might not just be, hey, my stomach is hurting, you want to give you some Pepto-Bismol and go lay down. But it's really starting with a conversation. Exactly what's going on, looking at different behaviors. Like Tierra said, if a parent is noticing their child is acting a little different, maybe they're more isolated than usual, maybe they're not talking, do they appear a little bit numb, what is their communication saying? So body language, everything, you definitely need to be attuned to the child.
Yeah, that's man, that is something about like the triggers, and a lot of the times, we kind of write off a child's triggers, based off of us being able to already quote unquote deal with those triggers.
Right.
So, like you said, being more in tune, to like kind of come down to their level is a prevalent thing for them, because it shows that, they can see that you trust, or they can trust you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can open up a little bit more, and they can verbalize it, because like you said, a lot of the time it's not going to come out in a complete cohesive thought. Because even most adults don't necessarily know how to communicate their feelings, to say I'm feeling frustrated or I'm feeling, if I promise you, if I was to give everyone a quiz in 10 seconds, write down 25 feeling words, most people can't even do that. So for us to have this high expectation of children who typically only know happy, mad, or sad, and they only know it just to be able to verbalize it, but they don't necessarily understand the connection of how that feels mentally or even physically, and being able to connect to that, to even verbalize it. And so, which is why we always say that behavior is important. Dr. Nadine Burke, who is the she does a lot of work around like the ACEs and trauma. She talks about, instead of us asking what's wrong with children, what happened to you, and kind of having that approach and that perspective, shifting the way we even think about like behavior when we present it. Instead of being punitive, we want to kind of have open arms and create the safe space to say, something's going on. And every child, truth be told, has not been traumatized. Every child isn't necessarily going through some type of major stressor. However, there are
certain things day by day that still has an impact on their mental health and wellness. And so whether we are, aware that there's some trauma or we're not aware and they're just experiencing some typical developmental, things, we just want to make sure that we're asking the right question, not what's wrong, but what's happening and how can I be of service? How can I support you?
Yeah, because pretty much in a nutshell, you have to look at behavior as a symptom and not behavior as behavior, but is an underlying symptom of something else that's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Because, we just tend to write off, like a bad kid as being bad, or, a
They
quiet
don't have
kid
home
is,
training.
Yeah.
They don't.
And our response is punitive.
Right.
We want to punish. We want to hold them accountable, which we do. We want to have balance in that. But at the same time, it's always good to first, seek to, understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we as adults want children to understand where we're coming from. But sometimes we rarely take that time and the necessary steps to understand where they're coming from first.
Yeah.
To be able to help them and be effective to them,
right, 'cause like you said, they can't really verbalize, you know what I'm saying? So, to kind of help drill down, be more consistent with that. All right, so what are some misconceptions about seeking professional help?
A lot. I mean, in our communities, we know historically is a stigma around seeking therapy. We've always said what happens in this house stays in this house. You don't share what's going on within your household with other people. That's big, especially when children have been sexually abused. The statistics show that children who are sexually abused are abused by people that they know.
90% of the cases.
Yes. So it's not a stranger picking your child up off the street. It's a uncle or I've even heard grandparents. I mean, unfortunately, in my line of work, I've heard biological fathers. Or it's a mom's boyfriend or
a
something
pastor,
like that.
a trusted adult. Someone who has like a really good link to that family that no one would think that person would even do something like that. So, and then also some other misconceptions, being put on, fears around medication.
Yeah.
A lot of times, again, maybe there were some practices, and sometimes still are some practices where maybe some children are overly medicated. And oftentimes, sometimes parents don't know how to advocate against that. So rather than even face that, they'd rather not seek help for their child or youth just because they think that may be, the immediate response to them trying to seek help for their children. And even just not even understanding like the different roles of people can sometimes be very confusing in navigating reaching out for help. And then also just again historically sometimes there's been studies and all types of things done to certain communities where there's just a distrust of if I'm vulnerable to you, if I open myself up to you, if I tell you my business, what are you going to do with this? Are you going to use this against me? Are you going to send it somewhere? All of those types of things come into play.
That's trauma in and of itself.
Absolutely.
And very basically, some people don't know where to go to for help. They don't really know where to start. They don't know what resources are in their communities. They don't know really where's the therapy place. Who can I call, So that is definitely a reason why some people don't, because very basically, where am I going to go?
Right.
And like she said, who can I trust? Who can I trust with this intimate, very vulnerable information?
Yeah. That's I think, I totally agree with you on that trust level, you know what I'm saying? Because historically, especially within our community, trusting folk has not really, worked out for our favor a lot of the times. That whole free cruise thing got us. That free cruise got us. I swear. But it's such a hard thing. Now I love the fact that the normalization is happening about seeking therapy, seeking help for yourself, seeking help for your family, healing generational curses, healing old wounds, those type of things. Like I really love the fact that it's becoming normalized. So how do we continue to push that further?
I think platforms such as this, we got to continue to have this conversation, especially in Baltimore. I know that it's been the buzz and the push now for Baltimore to be a trauma-informed city.
Yeah, that's the buzzword right now.
Yeah, that's the buzz. And so all organizations who are helping, all serving professionals, human service professionals, we can't really work in silos. It's going to take a paradigm shift, number one, in our thinking of how we approach trauma, how we approach violence and different things happening, and normalizing it, because this stuff is happening. We can no longer push it under the rug and expect everybody to fall in line. We can no longer put band-aids over stuff that requires more intense support healing. You know, it's like broken bones. You don't put a band-aid on a broken bone. It takes a lot to get bones mended back together. Is a process for healing. And I think that we as organizations, we need to come together, whether it's our churches or other faith-based organizations, whether it's your mentoring programs, whether it's your therapy programs, understanding really the impact of trauma. That's first and foremost, and being able to shift our thinking and bringing everything together so that we can move forward.
And then also actually connecting with the community. So with us coming together as service providers, we can't leave out the most important people, which are the people that we're trying to serve. And oftentimes they're not at the table. They're not a part of these conversations. And they're the ones who have to be a part of the conversations to share their experiences, their lived experiences, whether we are familiar with them or we agree with them or not. They need to be a part of those conversations and that work too, so that we can provide adequate, services. Yes, in some forms we're professionals and we have degrees and we have this, that, and the other and the third, but our constituents, the people that we're serving, they're the ones who are the experts of their lives. They know what they need. And so in order for us to work together, they have to be a part of those conversations. So even just engagement, relationships are everything. That's actually one of the key things to healing trauma in our city, is how are we building relationships? When you look at the relationships between, the police and the community, or politicians in the community, or even people who serve in the community. Don't always be fooled by just because a church shows up and gives out a turkey, or just some mentor place, is doing something with kids. How are you actually engaging that community? And Laura and I were talking earlier, oftentimes we're engaging the youth, but what are we doing or how are we wrapping our arms around that family? Yes. How are we wrapping our arms around that community? Because that child has to go back into that community.
And that's part of the problem, as far as for the mentoring piece for us. And this is why we stress to the parents of our mentees, please come. We're not just a babysitting service. We had our official kickoff of mentoring sessions yesterday, and the parents that we the head of the kids, they actually stayed for the entire program, and that really filled my heart. You know what I'm saying? So, and I had to express to them, I was like, thank you so much.
Yep.
Because, you want to be able to understand and know who you're dropping your child off to, who's affected.
And the thing about it is that we talk about intergenerational trauma a lot, and we've done training on intergenerational trauma. Yeah. So, I've come... from a place where I've seen parents drop their kids off and say, I don't need to sit here. This is their problem. They're the one with the issue. You kind of got to fix them. Yeah. But really the foundation of any community is a family. And then when you look at children's issues, it stems a little deeper than just that child. So a lot of times the parents are avoidant, not because they don't want to be there. It's because they're dealing with their own issues that they haven't dealt with, and so no, they didn't get the help. Right. And so you see a cycle of generational trauma and issues that are going on that's passed from generation to generation. So if my child is dealing with this, I haven't done with my own stuff, so I can't really support my child.
And our children are also mirror images of ourselves.
Exactly.
And so they reflect back everything pure about us, but also everything that hurts us, that has harmed us. All of those things is a reflection back to us. And that's hard to deal with, especially if you already have been impacted by other things, and now you're also having to deal with these other things that your child is now reflecting back to you about yourself, and so even with opening doors to parents or guardians or whomever is that support for that child. We also, one of the things as social workers, we learn early on in social work school, one of the things is, we have to meet people where they are.
Yep.
And meeting people where they are, sometimes outside of the four corners of our walls, when we say come, sometimes we have to go to them. And sometimes it's about us being present in their communities, knocking on their doors, passing out a cookie, having these discussions and conversations, because again, it's not so much that people don't necessarily care, but it's about they're afraid. It's something new sometime in engagement. And like I said, even around coming into a space that is of support, again, to them sometimes, based on their experiences, there are barriers with that. And so sometimes it's going to be for us as the service providers to not only open the doors and say, hey, you can stay, come in, we want to engage you, but sometimes we do have to meet them where they are. And sometimes it's right at their door, it's right on their steps, it's right on that corner that father might be at, but he's still making sure his son is getting to your program. So how are we going to connect with that brother? How are we going to bring him in and say, you know what, I'm not worried about what you're doing on this corner. I do appreciate that you send your son here, but I'm here for you too. What can I do for you? That's what we got to do.
Yeah, and being able to offer them some resources, because sometimes we get so involved in what we're doing. We have this program, we got this big mission statement that we going to be supporting kids, and no more such and such for these kids. We got them, but again, you have to deal with the whole family system. So while dad is sending his son to your program, dad needs some resources too. So I would say part of that healing process is for some of the organizations to also have resources and know what other organizations in their area are supporting families. So if they're about to deal with homelessness or evictions or things like that, any organization should be able to say, you want to know what? I know of a food pantry. I know of a church who helps with rent or anything. We need to know each other, and we need to know what we can provide, because I think that it's a lot of organizations and a lot of agencies in the city and surrounding areas that are doing great things for family. We just don't know all the ways,
and we're not
we don't
doing
know about
it together. And oftentimes we're servicing the same people, the same exact people. So just imagine if one agency is able to make an impact. What does it look like when all of us come together to make a bigger impact and work together and not be so caught up in who's going to get the line and the competition?
That's
and
such a deeper thing, as far as everybody kind of wants their shine.
Of course,
I get that. I get that, but you can't say you're for the community, and if all you want is just your shine. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to you know what, I specifically, or my organization specifically, can't help you, but I know of two young ladies who have an amazing consultant.
Yo, why can't they just come up with a list with all the stuff that everybody do and a description of what they do underneath their names?
So they do have those. They have different resources, actually. 311, I think the health department, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be rolling out something pretty soon if it hasn't already. So they do have these databases, but again, we're talking about access.
That's
so Lauren and I and
access?
Charles and you, we might can Google,
Right.
but what about the person who don't have Google?
That's what I'm saying. They should have it I think it's the city job to just say, look, all y'all services, contact us, we'll put you on the list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and they do have that, and that's one way. That is one effective way. But again, then we need to make sure that the access is available, because again, some people, or even like Lauren was talking about, some people don't even know where to begin when it comes to getting support. And I mean, I've worked with younger people, I've worked with older people, and even people who you think would know how to pick up a book or thumb through something. Even they've had difficult time in knowing how to even navigate that. So again, yes, we want to make sure that it's there, but then we want to make sure that people have different ways to access it. And then when you're talking about cognitive ability, I mean, all of those things come into play when it comes to getting information.
And when people in distress, they really want your help.
Right.
Even if they can do it, they don't want to do it because they're so consumed with everything else that they have going on. I just need you to do this for me. I don't have the mental capacity to get it done. Can you support? And so those are some of the reasons why we have these organizations that's coming up, the mentoring program, schools, whatever else, to really support families.
Yeah, I think, along the access lines, I think it's more changing the way we do stuff. You know what I'm saying? As far as we have to be more technologically, up to snuff. You know what I'm saying? Have the apps, have the Facebook pages, the Instagram pages. You know what I'm saying? The Snapchat. Whatever you have to do in order to reach your audience or whoever.
And even the old school flyers.
Even
Some
the old
people
school
are old
flyers.
school.
That's what I'm saying.
Put it in the door.
Exactly. Put them in the door. They're so concerned about plastic bags.
Yeah, we know we want to.
I'm not going to get on my soapbox today. I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna chill. I'm not going to get on my soapbox today. But they're so concerned about all these other frivolous things that they're not really reaching the core problem. Like
And then even where so when we think about our communities, where can these resources be held? So if it's at the rec, is it at the corner?
Yeah, we have this one thing, but it's all the way on in
so
Randallstown.
Can the corner store have?
I live down the hill, so
right.
how am I supposed to get there? I don't have no car. You know what I'm saying? Hacks are crazy. You know what I'm saying? Ubers is too much. How it's put these places in strategically accessible places,
or even just utilizing what's in people's communities. So if you have a corner store that everyone goes to, that corner store should have a resource book. We train Mr. Joe, who owns the corner store. Listen, you don't have to give no clinical advice. All you need to do is if someone comes in, or Miss Tiffany and her children, been struggling with food, you have this book, or you have access, or we have pamphlets in these places that are in their communities, because again, that's a source of support for some people.
Absolutely.
And support is going to look different in every community. It's going to look different in every family. It's going to look different for every individual. So for us, again, as service providers, no matter how we're providing a service, just making sure that we're thinking outside the box. And as Lauren said, we're changing, our thinking. We're having a paradigm shift of what help even looks like and what service can look like, and how, again, we ultimately can work together to service the same people that we write these grants and all of that for.
Absolutely. 1-855-493-6499. 1-855-493-6499. Join the conversation, man. We are having a very, very eye-opening discussion about coping with trauma and how we can all effectively help one another. So, and I see my man Tony, while he's away, he's still watching. Shout out to you, Tony. Appreciate it. Yeah, the question says, should a class or course be taught in schools about how to deal with trauma instead of bringing people in once something has occurred? So I guess being proactive instead of reactive.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I could kind of speak to that just a little bit. So along with being a part of Keys of Hope Consultants, I do work with Baltimore City Public Schools. And a great part of what my position has been providing a lot of service and training around social emotional learning, supports for teachers and administrators and everyone else who's just having any interaction, as well as, helping to promote the blueprint. And part of the blueprint is that they're kind of taking more of an approach of the whole child. And so mind, body, and spirit. And so there's a lot of great work being done in our schools. We still have a lot of work to do.
Shout out to 1 Less Mentoring Program.
Yes, but there is a lot of great work and strides that are happening in our schools currently. So you will find that a lot of classes and a lot of schools are now using a lot of the curriculums around social emotional learning. So we're being proactive, because I totally agree. Oftentimes we are reactive. Something happens and then we send out the troops of social workers and psychologists and all these other people, and which is nothing wrong with that, but it's not very effective. And so, there is some work around, again, making sure that, teachers and schools are equipped to be able to kind of add these supports, even in our schools.
Alleviate a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
Because I know a lot of social workers, and I see. I pray for y'all.
Yes.
I mean, for real. Like, I see the stresses that you guys go through, because you guys take on so much.
And like I said, there's still a lot of work to be done. There is a lot, but there is some strides that are happening. So I totally agree. Is it Tony who's on it?
Yes.
Tony, definitely. We totally agree that there should be education. It should be across the board. Every child should get it. Every school should get it. And so there is some work being done. And like I said, I can speak to that because of some of what I do. with my work in public schools, in Baltimore City Public Schools, is all around that, teaching those skills, working with parents, engaging teachers, engaging administrators, making sure that everyone is on board with making sure that our children are recognized and understood from a whole child perspective and not just focusing on the academic piece.
Yeah. So one of the things, because Tierra and I did a training for Baltimore County Public Schools for their conference. And one of the things is not just about a course being taught to the students, but it has to be an implemented practice across the system. So teaching restorative practices to teachers and to the administrators. What does that look like every day when you walk in? And so that even includes teachers being mindful and administrators being mindful of their own stuff. When those doors open up, how are you showing up for those children? Because that's part of the social emotional learning too. You can't really disconnect who you are and what you're going through. You could have gotten a car accident, had a bad day, stuff going on at home, and sometimes if you're not mindful of that, you might show up differently in your classroom, and that can impact the whole day, the whole energy of your class. And so,
and we also say too, a lot of times in our training, you don't do restorative practices, you be and you live restorative. Because when you be and you live restorative, then you're able to be that way to other people.
So but the compartmentalization isn't such a bad thing.
Okay.
And it's about modeling and implementing it and making it a practice across the board and being consistent with it.
And not just a checklist. Yep, we did a circle. Yep, I said hi to those two children. Oh, yep, we had a little, a check-in. It's just a part of your being, saying hello to your colleague. If I can say hello to my colleague, then we're mirroring, like Lauren said, how children should be to each other, how they should be towards their parents, how they should be towards other teachers. So teaching them all of those skills, but again, it's not just on the children. We also make sure that we're teaching the adults too,
and they're gonna learn by what you model more so what you teach them. If you tell me what I learned in geometry, I probably then forgot most of it, but I might remember if it was practice and it was part of the routine every single day. Absolutely.
And it changes the culture of the school. Again, it makes the entire school restorative, because again, we just don't want it in small little places. Like, again, it goes back to the whole silo thing. We want to make sure that it's across the board. So whatever school environment you go in, culturally, the culture, there's a shift.
All right. Got one more question before we take our break. Can you be fully healed from trauma, or is it an ongoing process? Oh, yeah. I stumped them, y'all.
I think that's up. I would say yes.
Okay.
But it just depends, again. People have to be willing. It is a willingness. Some people you can be a victim or a victor. That's how I see trauma. Yes, you've been through stuff, but there are a lot of protective factors that, we've addressed a few of them, but it's a person's choice to heal. I believe is a lot of factors, and depending on what the trauma is, I believe that you can. So,
it's going to always be ongoing, and it's more or less like how it impacts your life. And so, lots of people have had trauma. Oprah talks a great deal. Lots of celebrities, or just lots of local people have even been, very open and honest about their trauma. But again, it's just about, once we have that self-awareness, we're ready to deal with it. We're taking all of these different steps, coping mechanisms, and going to therapy or whatever it is that you need to heal. That then every day you're just kind of making sure that you're taking care of yourself from a wellness perspective, so that it doesn't kind of rear its ugly head back at you again. And just being cognizant, because again, it's not necessarily something that's going to always take over your life, but you just have to be cognizant and aware every day of what your triggers, because they'll never go away. But it's a matter of where you are in the space you're in, how you're able to cope with it and deal with it, and the impact it will ultimately continue to have over your life.
Excellent. And with that, we're going to take our break. We'll be right back on the Sunday Spotlight. right. We are back on the Sunday Spotlight. Brought to you by One More, One Less Mentoring. We are here with our guests, Miss Tierra Sydnor-diggs and Miss Lauren Capel of Keys of Hope Consultants, LLC. If you haven't been watching, you've been missing. But you can still come in. So come on. Call us up if you need to have a question answered or you just want to make a comment. 1-855-493-6499. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, who you are, and how did Keys of Hope Consultants come to be?
You want to start?
Sure. Okay, so I'm Lauren Capel, and I'm a clinical social worker. So I've been, I say, over 12, 13 years working with children and families and adults as well. Right now, outside of Keys of Hope, I do oversee a whole outpatient mental health clinic.
Wow.
So I oversee a program in 3 regions between Baltimore, Cecil County, and Prince George's. And outside of that, I work with Keys of Hope. So one of my passions is teaching professional development and training, something I'm really passionate about. I'm also a trauma trained therapist, so that is pretty much my area of expertise is trauma and serving people who've got a lot of trauma, basically. So I'll let Tierra introduce herself, and we'll talk about Keys of Hope.
So I'm Tierra Sydnor-diggs, also a licensed clinical social worker, 18 years in the game and counting. In addition to Keys of Hope, like I said, I do work for Baltimore City Public Schools. I am a social worker and also do some training and support, like I said, to different people throughout the district around trauma-informed care and restorative practices. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland School of Social Work. And I do a lot of work in community work. Trauma is my background as well. And again, specifically working with children and families around all different types of issues and concerns. And like Lauren, I found, a major passion around just being able to support people who have been called to serve as well. So not only just providing clinical and therapeutic services, I also want to support my colleagues, who also want to do this work, but sometimes struggle with how this work should be done, and still making sure that people have the tools and capacity, that we aren't re-traumatizing people without best intentions, if you know what I mean. And so that's pretty much where my passion has come from, and then it aligns with Lauren. We actually are Dunbar poets, so that's where we initially met.
PO3.
Yes, class of 2000. Oh, no.
We will not be disrespected on this show today.
The sound effects. The sound effects you hear on the Sunday Spotlight do not necessarily represent the views of One More, One Less Mentoring.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
That's all DJ Nick.
You will not traumatize us on this show.
Right.
We try to hell, Nick.
But yeah, so that's where we originally met.
Okay.
But then over time and over years, we kind of reconnected as adults, and discovered that we both had shared the same passion of really wanting to. Awesome? Yeah, absolutely. And it actually was I think ordained by God. Well, I think that everything, because we're spiritual, is ordained by God. But it was just us connecting back together. Thank you.
Shout
Took
out
away
to
the trauma, yeah. But that's really connecting and really having a heart and a passion and a purpose to really want to serve various communities when it comes to hope and healing.
Yeah.
And we're big on hope and the power of hope. Before you even get to being resilient, there has to be a level of hope. And so that's kind of what we come together on, and have been able to really do this work in different capacities. So like I said, we predominantly train. We do have backgrounds in providing therapeutic services, but now we more so focus on just training and development of professionals, but then other people who, again, just want to learn a little bit more about mental health, wellness, self-care. We also do a lot around secondary trauma, because this work is heavy. It's hard work. You know what I mean? And so we want to make sure that, again, we're not only taking care of communities and people, but we're also taking care of the people who are taking care of the people.
How about it?
So we have some some, big things coming up. This past year, early in May, we had our first Sanity in a Sanctuary conference, which we worked with various different religious groups and entities and brought them together in one space to be able to provide some training and support with them, because we know that churches, regardless of what church or background or whom you serve, that's typically the hub of where people go to for their healing and their support and their help and everything else in between.
And to let them know that it's okay to,
and it's okay
that
to
you can
mix,
have a therapy. And
yes,
Jesus.
absolutely. And that was the whole purpose of our first annual. So we're actually in the process of planning our second annual for 2020, May 2020. So we'll have some speakers. We had all different type of holistic.
You answering all my questions.
Oh, my bad. You told us to go.
That's going on, right?
You told us to go for it, so hey. But Lauren, you can take over with some of the other stuff we're doing too.
Okay.
I mean, what's your question?
All right, so my next question. What are the keys in Keys of Hope?
So the keys,
I did it.
Yes.
I know the pun is there. But
so she talked a lot about the power of hope. People have to have hope. We want to give. You can't give hope, but you can encourage. You can inspire other people, and that's what we want to do. But the keys are really about tools. It speaks to our training. It speaks to our workshop, things that we want to equip people with keys, with tools for success.
There you go. I like that.
And we're actually live too, so we had a little message of someone wanting to learn more about self-care. So could we talk about self-care a little bit?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so, and again, self-care we feel is a buzzword now because all people want to use it. But it is important. It is the foundation to having good mental health. And Lauren and I typically like to kind of make sure that people understand mental health is separate from mental illness. Oftentimes they're used together. And when we say mental health, most people think, bipolar, schizophrenia, which is a part of, which is a part of it. But when we talk about mental health, it's just things we can do on a daily basis to support our health, mind, body, and spirit. And so making sure that we are, whatever that may be, that's positive. And so for some people, it may be, prayer or meditation, or maybe exercising, or just basic nutrition. Going to the bathroom. I was at a professional development the other day, and we talked about how many people sometimes don't even use the bathroom within a day because we're constantly working. And by the time you look up, it's 3:00, and you're like, did I use the bathroom today? Because you're constantly in the grind, And so just taking time to just do those types of things. Drink some water.
How about
connecting with people.
Yeah.
So my word is nurture.
Okay.
So instead of self-care, I like to say nurture. How do you nurture yourself? How do you, when you're serving other people, how do you nurture yourself? How do you define that for you? If that makes sense.
And having compassion for yourself, because often, again, we're not, as patient and compassionate as we can be with ourselves. And Ricky Smiley last week, he said something. He said, we have a lot of people with public success, but private mess. And so making sure, though, even as we're grinding and we're being successful and we're working towards goals and all of those types of things, sometimes people are hurting. We just do a great job of covering it up. And so making sure, as Lauren said, that we are nurturing all parts of ourselves so that we can be that to other people, but then also, most important, be that to ourselves so that we can give more and have the energy that we need.
Not get so caught up in, trying to keep up with everybody else, or, their successes, that they have on Instagram or, social media. Because no one really shows their mess.
No.
Everybody want to show their success. We
see the glory, but you don't see the story.
Yeah, exactly.
And in Instagram, Facebook, and everything else is great platforms, but again, it's curated. We put out there what we want.
Absolutely.
Some people are extra vulnerable, we will say.
Some people are.
But for the most part, we're curating what we want people to see. And so we just want to make sure, even with that, a part of self-care, taking a break from all of that, distancing yourself and really just going within and really taking that time to really nurture yourself.
Absolutely. I like that. Definitely.
So thank you, Mindy, for asking that question.
Thank you, Mindy. Appreciate that. What opportunities have Keys of Hope have given or provided to our youth?
So, We do a lot with just like serving. So, again, mentoring agencies. We may go and speak. We've been a part of, shout out to Rachel Dolcine. We've been a part of her
Mother and Son
Summit.
Yeah. So she actually has a big summit series that's going to be online. It's a virtual series that's happening all month. So we are going to be talking about communication. So we're supporting the youth as is for sons and daughters, this virtual series, and stuff for the parents. So things that families can do, and being aware of mental health. And also strategies to bring the family together through communication. What do certain signs and symptoms look like? What does grief and loss look like? So it's a lot. Cyberbullying, bullying is a lot of topics that this series has been covering. So we will be uploading. You'll see us on there this week. So we do workshops and stuff at the summit. It's held at the schools every year. So we typically we've done every one actually.
Various girl groups, we may go and speak and just talk about anything from mental health and wellness to just what it's like to be a woman and a young woman growing up in this day and age, and how do we navigate those things, even down to some of our local shelters, just various different aspects. We like to make sure that we stay connected and very visible in the work that we do. We don't just talk this talk, we walk this walk as well.
Right.
But most importantly, we try to reach to the adults, the decision makers, those who are serving our youth and our families, those who we try to train, because they're the ones that's doing the work ultimately. We can't touch on every single kid, but we can touch the organizations and the leaders in those organizations to support them.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Okay. 1-855-493-6499. 1-855-493-6499. So since your last visit, what challenges have you come against since you guys? Because I knew you were just kind of starting the LLC. What new challenges have you come across since last year? Was this been like cool breeze?
No, it's definitely not a cool breeze. I mean, anything when you're starting a business, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work for visibility. It takes a lot of work for innovation, creativity, to be able to stand out and not do stuff that everybody else is doing, to be able to focus and stay in your own lane. And I think just personal things. I know for me, being promoted at work and having to have more responsibilities kind of took away initially.
And just the hats that we wear. We're moms, we are wives, and then we have a whole lot of other roles too. So just finding balance, but also still making sure that we stay close to the purpose
Trying to
and
wear
the goal.
all the hats.
Absolutely. So even us practicing our own nurturing is super important to us, but it can sometimes be challenging just because we are driven and we want to make sure that we're having an impact. So just really finding balance has been probably not necessarily a difficulty, but just something it's just an ongoing thing that we just continue to try to work through.
Putting on our very first conference was definitely challenging, but very rewarding, I must say. But now that we know we can do it, and it was very successful, we had a good turnout. But even just realizing that we have support. And so it wasn't just us; it was people that was coming in like, "What can we do? How can we help?" So we had a whole committee.
Sometimes you can feel an island.
Being okay with receiving support was a huge nurturing for. I know for me, because I know we had a death in my family. I was in a car accident. It was like a lot going on. So I mean, just for people to be able to step in and reach and relying on the support and being okay that people had our best interests as well was just like a big thing for us.
And believe in our dream. It was a dream that we put together, took the steps, took the leap of faith, and it happened. And it wasn't just us that made it happen. It was the community that surrounds us made it happen.
Absolutely. So what's next with KOH?
So we're definitely going to put on our conference next year. This will be something that we're going to be doing every year. And again, it's called Sanity in the Sanctuary. And it's really for faith-based organizations and leaders to come together, or anybody that serves and want to have more information about how they can be more inclusive of people that's dealing with mental illness. We're also planning I want to say self-care because I'm trying to a nurturing type of seminar for service for people, human service professionals. So that will be coming out in January.
And it'll be like a mix and mingle too, because we like to have fun. We like to create the Lauren and Tierra experience. So it will be a lot of information, but at the same time, a part of nurturing and self-care is also about having fun.
Party with a purpose.
Party with a purpose, and so we will definitely be doing that in January. We have some upcoming trainings that we'll be putting out soon around like restorative practices. We're always available for like mental health 101 and just even around tools and supports, because again, sometimes we do the trainings, but then it's like, what do we do with the trainings? So we also have some additional trainers that just offer some supports around like what are some tools that we can use, in such as like a mentoring program, the setup, the resources, how do you connect with people, those types of things as well. Which always, isn't so easy for people to do.
True. Very, very true.
Yep.
Very true. So if people want to find out more about Keys of Hope Consultants, LLC, because I'm going to make sure I say the whole thing. How can people get in touch with you, and how can they like really reach out? And we were talking about access earlier.
Yep.
So, so how the ones, that feel like, I don't know how or where to even turn to, how can they reach out to you?
Well, they can reach us on 3 different avenues. One is on our direct website at www.keysofhopeconsultants.com. We're also on Facebook as Keys of Hope Consultants, and Instagram is Keys of Hope. Oh, we Keys of Hope Consultants on.
We Keys of Hope on Instagram.
Okay, Instagram Keys of Hope. Sometimes I get confused.
And honestly, we get a lot of DMs.
Yeah,
quite a bit of DMs. We post a lot. Sometimes we may get 5 likes or whatever on some of our posts, but we get quite a bit of DMs of people just asking about resources or sharing their stories or, seeking some type of services. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to us in any form or capacity. We're definitely all about providing support. And again, as we said, if we can't give it to you, we definitely are pretty connected, and we'll help you get to what you need.
All right. Well, Nick, you got anything, homie? You good?
Nick a little quiet today.
He chilling. He watching the game.
After he hated on Dunbar Poets, but that's okay.
That's when he woke up.
Thank you. You redeemed yourself.
There you go. Well, we've come to the end of our hour. We appreciate you so much for coming back. Again, your family now. This is your second time. We want to hear more, so please keep in touch with us. Let us know what you got going on. Drop us flyers, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We'll try to get as much information out to our viewers and our public as much as possible. So, thank you so much, guys, for coming on.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And with that being said, we've come to the conclusion of the Sunday Spotlight. We want to thank our special guests, Miss Tierra Sydnor-diggs and Miss Lauren Capel of Keys of Hope Consultants, for joining us today, along with DJ Big Nick holding us down, with the Mix Station Radio family for holding us down. And last but not least, we want to thank you all for listening and viewing. We appreciate you so, so much. If you would like to learn more about the Sunday Spotlight and or the One More, One Less Mentoring Program, you can check us out on Facebook.com/OML The Mentoring, or visit our website at omolmentoring.org. We're also looking for sponsors. We need the money. Y'all know me. I'm not going to sugarcoat nothing. Like, this, y'all want to see how the sausage is made. You know what I'm saying? We got to get this. But if you like what you heard and you like the content that we're bringing you, and you want to continue to see us every Sunday bringing you more people, more organizations who are doing positive and good things in the community, please consider donating. Please consider being a sponsor. You can reach out to us various ways. You can reach out to us on our website, like I said, omolmentoring.org, facebook.com/omlmentoring, or you can give us a call at 443-562-7455, and we'll have you on our show. We have many different levels of sponsorship packages that you can be a part of. So just want to make sure that all your donations are tax deductible, because One More, One Less is a 501c3 nonprofit. So also keep that in mind. And please join up with us and let's start getting on promoting your brand or your business. So again, thank you again for listening to the Sunday Spotlight. I've been your host, Mr. Charles Pat, on behalf of Mr. Tony Hinton, who is away, and we wish you a safe travel back home, sir. Remember, stay focused, and when you can, help our young people reach for the stars. Good night, y'all.
JD, beats, wanna know, SVP.